And in this corner, awesome episode coming up here as we welcome a 13-year veteran of MMA, now retired, a 21-year veteran of firefighting. We got the one and only Chris Lights Out Lytle, the guy that I affectionately call the walking fight of the night. How many? 6 fights of the night, 1 knockout of the night, and 3 submissions of the night. That's a lot of money. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Chris, how you doing, man?
Not too bad. Yeah, that was those were the good days when they would give good sized bonuses sometimes.
Really
You never really knew until you got there what the bonus was, but it was always a goal to get the bonus, you know.
Oh, of course. It still is to this day, man. I mean, you see fighters like literally going into tears when they get the fight of the night now or a knockout of the night, because for a fighter, that could be game changing, like a 40 grand, 50 grand influx into your bank account. It's a big deal.
Especially brand new fighters, you know, it might be their first big contract, and you know they're getting, 25 grand if they win, pretty much. But all of a sudden you add them another 50 grand. Oh my God, with the fight world, you're always one injury away from not having any money coming in for 6 months. So it's a big deal.
It is. It's and we can go on and on about fighter pay and all that stuff because it is a wild subject. It's a wild subject, but what I didn't put on there is obviously a broadcaster for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. And Today is the 4th birthday, as we record this podcast, the 4th birthday of BKFC. And certainly something that's changed your life as well, Chris. I mean, being a part of that broadcast team with Sean, I'm happy to be on there myself, Jeff Houston. This broadcast team that we have is awesome. But just let's talk about BKFC since it is their birthday. We might as well dig into it. How much fun has it been working for BKFC?
Man, I absolutely love it. I always thought, I was an MMA guy. I also did pro boxing. I was like, man, I love those 2 sports. Nothing will, take over this. This is my roots. And, I still appreciate that. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'd rather be in a bare knuckle fight than anything. Being commentary right there is about as good as it gets. Yeah. I think we have advantages over MMA and boxing where I still feel like, I don't know if it's because of money involved or whatever, but I mean, to me, a lot of those fights they're athletic contests are not fights. That's the one thing we have is people come to fight. People in bare knuckle come, they want to knock each other out. They put on entertaining fights. And I don't think a lot of other people have that. I think it's our huge advantage. And I mean, it keeps me on the edge of my seat. I think I've never talked to somebody who said, watch these fights. And afterwards, I didn't say, when's the next one? Everybody wants to watch the next one. So that's a beautiful thing. If that's what you're getting, that's what I'm getting. And everybody likes the sport. So it's fantastic.
It is. And being there in person, watching on TV it's a thrill ride as well, because they have dialed up that production to where it looks so good. And that's a shout out to our production team. I swear I'm not being a brown noser here, but I really do. I tell people all the time because I've worked for, I don't know how many shows, God knows how many shows overseas, in the States, on different networks. And the way that show pops off the screen with the production, with the way the lighting is, the colors of the mat, everything that goes into it, it literally pops off of the screen. And then you hear the microphones that kind of amplify of the fist hitting somebody's jaw, hitting somebody's face, their stomach, wherever. And it's just, I don't know. It's a surreal experience. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. Even guys who've been around the fight game forever, all of a sudden when they go, they're like, man, this is different. And that's very exciting. We've had some high level athletes there. I remember the one time Shaquille O'Neal came and did some commentary with us. He loves this stuff, man. He's all about it, and he's been a big fan of MMA, boxing, all that stuff for a long time. So the people who truly fans of combative sports, man, there's nothing quite like it. So it's definitely a good addition to have. I never thought I would like it. I remember the first time I saw somebody doing it, it was Joe Riggs. Somebody sent me something. Joe Riggs fights bare knuckle. I was like, the hell's wrong with Joe? It was one of the first ones. Like, what's wrong with this guy? What's he doing? I remember I started watching it, and after about the second round, I was like, I kind of want to do this. I have to do, it wasn't what I thought, I had this perception. It's like everybody, when you first hear like bare knuckle, what? And then you watch and you're like, this is technical, this is skilled, this is highly skilled. This is more skilled than other stuff because you can't get hit. It was way different than I thought, but it's just that perception sometimes takes over. And I'm just glad that the more we can get people to see it, the more they understand.
And perception, I mean, think about, how many years ago, almost 30 years ago now, the perception that MMA had. I mean, it was the same type of thing. Like what, they're fighting in a cage, and in the beginning there was less rules back in the day as well, and it was a perception thing. But then once you watch it, you're like, oh, okay, well, they jump in there, they stop the fights, and a lot of people will make the case that MMA is safer than boxing because it's not just continuously getting battered in the head and getting back up and getting back up and getting back up. The perception thing is crazy. Everybody has an idea of what they think it is.
Well, I've argued even for some commissions and talked to the Ringside Physicians Association. I talked to them that, yes, I agree with you. MMA is safer than boxing, and bare knuckles safer than MMA. I think bare knuckles is the safest of the three sports. You don't get the
explain people that. Like, what's your argument on that?
Like I said, as somebody who's done pro boxing, MMA, bare knuckle. I mean, even when I came out of retirement, I think I was 44, 43 or 44. So my family, I was going to do it. They're like, no, we're not. You're not doing this. I was like, I have to. Well, it was like this. It was like, I'm not going to get hit as much. Even the training is when most of the damage is done. And you have to train differently. You can't get hit. So you have to realize that. So when I'm doing boxing, I'm parrying, I'm doing things. You're still getting hit. But in bare knuckle, you have to change it up. So even in the fight, you might get hit 20 times around. In a boxing match to the head, you're not taking that in bare knuckle. If so, you're cut open, you're bleeding. You're going to get cut open more in bare knuckle, but it's superficial. I don't want the brain damage. We've talked about that. The brain, if you're around a fighter who's been punchy, a pro boxer at the end of his career, that's a sad thing, and I never want to be part of that. And you're not going to get that with bare knuckle, I don't think. So that's where I've talked to commission. When I talk to the doctors, they got it. They're like, that makes sense. Like, I'm like, you are going to get cut more. There is going to be more stitches. I don't care if I have stitches. I care if when I'm 60, if I can talk, you know what I mean? And they get that, and it makes sense if you think about it. I mean, same thing with MMA. I mean, you get knee to the head hard, that's going to be a problem. You do that several times. I've seen fighters. There's a couple of guys I was friends with, and they're not doing well, man, and it kills me. I'm fortunate enough to get out of that unscathed. I think bare knuckle is the way to go, especially for an older fighter.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's take it all the way back real quick, and let's kind of run some cliff notes here on you growing up. I'm a Midwestern. Okay. I'm an Iowa guy. You grew up in Indiana, there at Indianapolis. Moved towards wrestling I'm guessing at a fairly early age. Let's talk about your growing up a little bit.
Yeah, started wrestling pretty early, probably 11 years old or so, 12 years old, and I was an extreme sports junkie. I played football, baseball, basketball, track, did kind of everything. But man, there's nothing quite like a sport where, it's all about how hard you want to work. Wrestling has a way of dominating your life more than anything. I don't know if it's because just when you get into it, I mean, even like when you play football, when you get done with practice, that's it. You're never done with wrestling practice. I mean, you got the weight cut and everything. I mean, it's kind of more of a way of life than any other sport I've ever been around.
It's a different breed. It really is. You see him walking through the school and stuff, and you're like, oh man.
You can just tell. Yeah, something's and just like that one-on-one, like however hard I work is how good I'm going to get. And I love that because I've been a member of some pretty bad teams, and it's kind of rough when you're the working real hard, other people aren't. You're like, man, I can't. I can't deal with this very well. I mean, it's really amazing. You watch that show, The Last Dance, with Michael Jordan. It just shows like he was. I mean, a lot of people, when you look at him, almost seems like a prick in many ways because he demanded from everybody what he did. A lot of other people didn't want to put that kind of effort in. Like I don't know. So
they say Kobe Bryant was the same way.
Exactly.
Same. They're just they're built differently, and they never stop. And you're right. Yeah, wrestling's like that. I always talk about it. I did like half of a season just because my dad was a coach. I was a senior, and no joke, I did it because I love basketball a lot. So like it's my favorite sport to watch, to play to this day. I wasn't very good, but I just loved it. But I went out my senior year, and I was like I said, I think I maybe did like 2 months. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I wrestled one JV match. I didn't want to cut weight, got dominated. But you know what? It wasn't for me. I just went and worked and made some money. But it is, man. There's nothing like a wrestling practice, period. Like we had like this outdoor building or whatever, like this steel building next to our school. And that thing was like 120 degrees. And like dudes are doing frog hops and leapfrogs and rolling, and like it went on forever. And I'm like, damn, does this ever end? Like, what the hell is this practice? It was horrible.
Man,
But
you
yeah,
know, the thing is, you get that kind of, that's really only combative sport I can think of at the high school level. So when you get these guys who dominate in the UFC and even really in boxing and bare knuckle, it's the same mentality. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So that's why that's the only one that translates over, in my opinion. A lot of wrestlers go into MMA, but you know, a lot of MMA guys go into bare knuckle now. You know what I mean? So it's all the same mentality, and I think that's really the only sport at a lower level that you can still kind of adopt it. But I mean, it's the exact same mentality. You know, you go as hard as you can. You go out there and you train to dominate the other person, and you just do whatever you can. Everything in your power. I don't think people realize like how little minute details of everything you eat, sleep, drink, think about. I mean, it encompasses your whole life. And
yeah.
you know, it's rough being part of a family with a fighter, you know.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, you end up doing the thing that everybody talks about when they're a kid. I want to be a firefighter. You went and did it. So,
Yeah.
and you're still doing it 21 years in. And what led you to that route, man? What led you to be a firefighter?
You know, I remember when I was my freshman year of college, I took this, for the summer, I took this volunteer forest firefighter thing just to like, that'd be cool. You know, you get to go out when there's a forest fire and do whatever. And I remember that just going through the training, it just piqued my interest. I thought, wow, this is really, you know, very exciting. It sounded like a lot of fun. And, you know, you get to go out and do some positive things. And then I graduate from college and I started working in the real world. And I remember thinking, I don't like that, you know, I want something new every day, something that's going to pique my interest. You know, I've always been someone enjoy helping people. So I mean, that kind of best of both worlds. You know, you go there, you can do something that's highly exciting, a lot of fun. But I mean, at the end of the day, you sit around, you wait for somebody to call you to help them. I mean, hey, how can you feel any better about yourself than when you go help somebody? There's really not much like it. You know, sometimes you can save somebody's life. It makes you feel. I don't know any firemen who at the end of the day they come home and they feel bad about themselves. You know, you sleep really well, you're happy with what you're doing, so it's kind of a no-brainer for me. And then I started, before I even got involved with that, I started fighting. So then I was like, man, I love fighting. You know, and the firefighting is like the schedule works really well. Plus, you get to do good things. It was just everything made a lot of sense. It just finally had a game plan of what I wanted to do. I got on the fire department fairly young and just stuck with it.
What's your go-to when you're sitting at the station and there's nothing going on for hours? Because you always hear about that.
Yeah.
You can sleep at the station. And so what do you do to pass the time?
I got some good workouts I'll do. Sometimes I'll be in the weight room, you know, for 4 hours, you know. So we got that. There's always a lot of, you know, you can, a lot of Netflix or series you can watch, you know, binge those things, man. It's like, man, I've watched 6 hours of Game of Thrones, but what the heck's going on? It depends on, you know, sometimes you don't have any time. You're busy all day, but then more often than not, no, you got downtime.
I gotcha. All right, so let's get into the fighting career a little bit. Started off boxing, correct? So
no, people
didn't start. I thought it was started with boxing.
I started off doing MMA. Matter of fact, I did that, and then that's what led me to a boxing gym. I was thinking, man, I'm pretty good on the ground. I need to get better on my feet. So I started going to a boxing gym. All right. And then pretty quickly they just threw me in a boxing match just because I was supposed to get beat up. You know, they're like, my guy got called and said, I need a tough guy. You got any guy who's tough? And he's like, yeah, I got a tough guy. I was fighting a guy who had like 40 amateur fights. It was an Indian guy on the Indian reservation. And he was 2-0 as a pro boxer. So like, I never had an amateur boxing match or anything, but I've had a bunch of MMA fights. I fought in Japan and stuff. So they just threw me in there to fight. And, you know, later on, they told me like after the fight, I vaguely remember it because I mean, 4-round fight wasn't that long, but I mean, it felt like a long time. And my corner told me the whole time, like, man, you're winning every round. And so afterwards, they called it a draw, but they're like, man, you fought this guy on his reservation in his hometown, you know. You got a draw. You won the fight. So then the guy who that's really how I got my nickname. The guy who got the fight for me was a guy named Pete Souza. He's a kind of a big wig up at Top Rank Boxing. And he was like, man, I brought you in to get beat up. What's your name? And I said, my name's Chris Lytle. And he's like, man, he's like, I'm going to get you some more fights. I'm gonna call you Lights Out because you're gonna knock a bunch of people out. I was like, cool, and I have a nickname, and you're not allowed to give yourself a nickname. People try to. That's embarrassing.
Yes.
So I let him. It was funny too because afterwards he's like, James Toney doesn't need that name. He's done with it. That was like when James Toney had a little lull in his career, but then after that he got really good again. So I was like, yeah, he kind of does need the nickname still, but I still he gave it to me. I kept it.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, let's talk about the MMA career because I was looking up and down. Excuse me, some of your fights, and I saw Extreme Challenge on there because you were there kind of from the outset. Obviously, not like early, but they're that 98, like where it was Extreme Challenge, hook and shoot. Yep. And I actually had Monty Cox on here, who that dude is an absolute trip. And but I always like to hear stories about the small shows. And it's weird about you because you actually went to Pancrase like in your second or third pro fight for MMA, which is crazy. Like, well, how does that happen?
It's not true. That's how it happens because, it has on my records like my second fight, but I was like 10-0 when they sent me there. But what happened was in the 98, 99, they went back through and they're like, well, those were all unsanctioned fights in Indiana and Illinois. All the Midwest wasn't sanctioned. Sanctioned by, so they came through and they erased my record and took away all these wins. I probably had about another 15 16 wins. It's funny. They never got rid of one of my losses. That's not fair. But all these
get rid of the loss, please.
Yeah, exactly. Get rid of some of those. Not one, but all the Midwestern, little shows that, I got paid to be at. I consider a pro. So when you're there and you're fighting and you get paid, you're a pro. But I mean, they went through and took all those away. So like I said, I had several fights before they sent me to Japan, but they only I don't really care about that. So if people ask me what my real record is, how many fights I've had, I'm like, I don't know, probably 80. I'm like, well, that's not what your record says. I'm like, yeah, I've had a lot more than that. So
yeah, well, it's like who is it? Miguel Torres. They said he had like 50 or 60 fights that aren't even recorded. Like that's it's Miguel insane. Vanderlei Silva. I mean, you can only imagine. Like it's bananas. But about those small shows, those unsanctioned shows. Yeah. Give me a good story because those promoters, those venues, like I've heard some crazy stuff, man. Give me a good one. There had to be one where you walked in like, damn, what the hell am I doing here?
Oh, there's several like that. You go in. I remember one time, like fighting in Chicago, like we drove up there and afterwards, like it was in some kind of a gymnasium, and afterwards, the guy who brought me up was like, I was like, hey man, before I was coming up there, I was like, I'm gonna need a place to stay or something. You guys gonna take care of that? He's like, we got you. So afterwards, I slept in his gym, like the mats were all rolled up. We're like, where the hell we're gonna sleep? He's like, yeah, you can sleep anywhere you want. Sleep in the gym. So I remember me and I had like a corner man, and we're just like, the mats are all rolled up, so we kind of rolled out a little bit, lay there, no pillow, no blanket. It was like, I guess this is where we're going to sleep tonight. You know what I mean? The next morning, it's like, hey man, grab some of those mats. We're going out to the beach. We went out like Lake Michigan or something out in the beach and just rolled out a mat, and we just sat there and rolled for about 2 hours. It was hilarious. Another bad one was this was I blame Monty Cox for this one. So we get another fight up in Chicago area, and the reason I blame Monty is I saw he had a bunch of guys on the card. I was like, I think Rich Franklin was on the card. Eugene Jackson was fighting Tony Fricklin. There's probably 6 UFC veterans on the card. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'm fine. I'll fight. I fought Laverne Clark, another UFC veteran. I was like, man, I mean, back then, especially it's probably, I don't know, 2000, maybe 2001. I was like, Laverne Clark was legit. He was like 3-1 UFC at one point. I was like, this guy's good. I'm going to fight this guy. Yeah. I know he's money's guy, so I know this is going to be good. And some guy named Ed Kim was putting on this fight. I was like, who the hell's Ed Kim? Never heard of this guy. Whatever. So we show up there, and I remember I saw Ed Kim. I'm like, Ed Kim looks like he's like 22 years old. I was like, how in the hell is this guy doing that? I was like, man, is this going to happen? Like, oh, yeah, they've checked him, and he had it all in escrow. Okay. So we go to the fight. There's like 100 people show up, maybe. I mean, there's a great card. You're not going to see a better card. It was fantastic, but nobody showed up. I don't know if he didn't advertise. I think he thought it was like a build it and they will come. Yeah. So I fight Laverne Clark, beat him in a 3-round decision. And then, went and got paid. Everybody got checks, and everybody's check bounced. Nobody got paid for that card. You know what I mean? And Ned Kim disappears. Nobody can find him. I'm like, dude, you rip off old ladies or you rip off Girl Scouts. You don't rip off fighters. People are going to kill you, man. I mean, luckily, I'm a, you know, like I said, had a real job. It didn't bother me as much. It did. But he filed bankruptcy and nobody ever got paid. It was horrible, man. But yeah, I blame Monty because I'm like, Monty's going to get paid. Monty always gets paid. So I thought it was probably, but that was one I don't think he did. So that
wow.
one sucks. Yeah,
that's hard to believe, man. Like you said, Monty always gets paid. I love talking to that dude, man. He's got people that absolutely love him, people that hate him. Like, but he is like,
nobody says no. Right.
No, there really isn't much gray area there. Like it's either one or the other for sure. Yeah. But all right, well, you kind of had like a few one-offs with UFC, like, and you don't see that very often anymore. Like where you pop in, you would have a fight, but then you didn't fight for a couple more years for them, and you probably had another 12 fights in between your next UFC fight before you got to Ultimate Fighter. So just talk about that because it's a lot different now. Usually guys get a 3-fight deal, a 4-fight deal, and they'll usually get all those fights.
There was no contracts back then. I mean, it was so weird. I fought in UFC before Dana White and Zufin was in there. I was there with the SEG days. So that was my first fight was in 2000, the UFC. So, you know, I fought there and to be honest with you, I was not impressed. Like, so I was used to fighting over in Pancrase in Japan. They treat like a professional athlete. You'd show up, they had someone there at the airport with your name tag and picking you up and giving you money and per diem and this and that. I show up at UFC the day before the fight. You know, you show up in Japan, it's a week before, you know, the show the day before the fight. Yeah. And I remember the day of the fight, it was same day weigh-in. So I showed up, you know, we weighed in the morning and they said, Chris, and it was in a little tiny room. There was no media. And they were like, Chris, we have a problem. I was like, what's that? Like your medicals. What's a problem? They go, well, we said you had to go to an ophthalmologist. Like you went to an ophthalmologist. I'm like, one letter, the H in there. What's the big difference?
An optometrist or something, right?
Yeah. And they're like, the difference is you have to go to the doctor right now and get your eyes examined. I was like, all right. So I show up. They dilate my eyes like the day of the fight, you know. So I'm leaving there. I can't see. I got to wear those glasses. It was, and I couldn't see. I was just like, this is the day of the fight, you know. Like it was just. Oh my gosh. And per diem, they didn't give us per diem. They gave us like a voucher because we were staying at the Taj Mahal. It's the first one in New Jersey. Taj Mahal, you got like a little tag. You could go in the back and eat with the crew. Like so, people, the waitresses, the cooks, all the people like in the back, you could go back there and eat with those guys. I was like, this is not how it's supposed to be. so I got done with that, and I was like, man, I'm cool. You know, I made hardly any money. I made a lot more to go to Japan. So like, I'm just going to keep going to Japan. So, and then about 2 fights later, Dana White and Zufin bought, you know, they were, I could tell they were not going to make it. And that's what I thought. If this is a Super Bowl, we're not making it. I better go back to Japan. So when the UFC got a hold of Dana White and them, then I started looking, I was like, oh, I kind of like what they're doing. They're turning it around, you know, and after about a year, I was like, I want to fight for these guys again. But then they only put on about 5 or 6 fights a year. So I couldn't just say, hey, I'm in, I'm back. They're like, go away. You know, we don't know who you are. So then I was talking to people, how do I get back in? Like, you have to win several fights, you know? And so it was always different too, going over to Japan. I don't know if people realize, you know, fighting over in Pride or in Pancrase, those guys had not good records because all they do was fought the best of the best. They fought each other all the time. So you'd go over there and tough to win. You get a draw or you get a loss. And it's like, that set you back 3 fights. So I just had to go over there, put a good streak together and fight around anywhere in America and beat as many people. I'd fight in the WEC. I'd fight wherever, you know, just fight as many people as you can and beat it. Looking back, man, a lot of those guys were like very good fighters. Like they would end up being UFC veterans later on down the road. But you had to beat them around the Midwest circuit, around the West Coast, just wherever you can, string some fights together until I got lucky enough to get in there and fight the 10-year anniversary UFC 45. I got to fight. They brought me in to fight Robbie Lawler. But it's kind of like when they're like, oh, we're bringing in this guy's a pro boxer. Because at that time I was doing pro boxing. I think I was, I don't know, probably, you know, 10-1 or 10-0 as a boxer. So they're like, we're going to bring in this boxer to fight Robbie Lawler. I was like, cool, put me as a boxer if that's what you think I am. And we'll do it. And it was great, you know. So that, and then I had a good fight with them, and so then they they liked me, but even back then they didn't sign anybody contract, really.
Yeah.
I mean, very few people. So they told me, we love what you do. We need to fight for us again. You just go out and get a quality win, and then we'll bring you back. So I went out and fought, Pete Spratt, who just beat Lawler, and I beat him at another show. And then they brought me back. So, but they didn't sign people to contract really ever until I got on the Ultimate Fighter.
Well, speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, I'm actually watching it again. I hadn't watched it, in years, and got a buddy of mine, Chandler Cole. He's from this area, and he's on there right now, all the heavyweights, which is a lot of fun. But your season was special, man. When you talk about the guys that were involved with that season, and not even just the guys, but it was the comebacks, which was dope. Like, it's such a cool concept.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I don't know that they've done it again. Like, as far as in that, I don't know that they've ever done it that way again. And I think they could do it. I think there's a lot of guys out there that you put them in a house. I think it could be a lot of fun. You know, guys that have fought for UFC and stuff. I don't know why they haven't done it again, but this house, we're talking Matt Serra, Shoney Carter, which Shoney's bananas. I love Shoney. And then Dean Thomas kind of jumps off there, but there's a lot more guys. But I'm thinking personality wise, those three right there had to be wild to be in the same house with. But I'm sure there's a lot of other guys that come to mind that were just as crazy.
Man, that was a great time, and I loved it, and I really became really good friends with Matt Serra and Dean Thomas during that time. We were all roommates together right there.
Yeah.
But that was really the only time in my career I ever got to, what I think is train like a real fighter. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Every day, I had to take off the fire department for about 7 weeks, go out to Vegas, stay in this house. It's funny. Some people complain, I don't got a TV, I don't have my phone. I remember me and Matt Serra sitting there talking. We're like, man, I don't care about any of that stuff. This is the best training I've ever had in my life. I get to come here.
Yeah.
I get to train with you guys. And who else is there? George St. Pierre is one of the coaches. Randy Couture. Like, I've never had no distractions. I can eat perfectly. I can train twice a day, every day, no matter what. And I felt like I was in some of the best shape of my life right then, and got some of the best training ever. I took techniques and things that I used the rest of my career after I was there. So it was an awesome time, man. I'm not sure who would not. I've talked to several people who didn't like being on the show. I'm like, man, you guys are nuts, man. If you guys are spoiled or something, I don't understand. You guys have a lot of opportunity, more than I had, because I love this opportunity to be here the whole time.
Yeah. How many did you have any kids at that time too?
I had 4.
You had all 4 of your kids at that time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that had to be crazy. Like, cause I know you're a family guy too, so like that had to be crazy being gone for that long.
Yeah, and it was bad. At the beginning, they were like, okay, you guys are going to get a phone call a week because you guys are veterans and you guys have family. So I was like, all right. So after the first 2 weeks, I talked to the wife. And then after that, we got in trouble and they took them away. It's like, well, this is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was like, all right.
How did you get in trouble? Like, what? Elaborate. What's that mean?
I don't know if you remember that Jeremy Jackson got in trouble. He jumped over the fence and went and met up with some girl. And so he got kicked off the show, and they said, we didn't get to go. Before that, we went to the YMCA twice. After that, we never got to go back. And then we never got to, call your family anymore. I'm like, I didn't even know we did that. What's that have to do with me? I didn't get it, but whatever. So it was very tough, but it's tough for my wife and everything. She had to take care of 4 kids, when I'm gone the entire time. So, luckily for me, I have other family there. They were able to jump in and help out. It was everybody jumped into their part. It was nice just so I could live my dream,
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah. I know that life, man. I have a very good wife at home that takes care of things when I'm off traveling to Timbuktu and Abu Dhabi and every other place. So you definitely got to have that cornerstone, somebody holding it down. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, let's talk about, I know we're jumping way ahead here, and there was a million fight of the nights and incredible opponents, but let's talk about the retirement fight with Dan Hardy. So you make this decision. You end up going out with a win, which a lot of guys don't do. So that had to be a good feeling. That's like the John Elway thing. You go out on a win, go out on a Super Bowl. That's pretty good stuff, man. Talk about, first off, how did you come to the decision? Like I saw like on your Wikipedia and stuff, I want to be around family more. So I totally get that. Is that basically all it was? Like you were just ready to be home?
Man, you know what? I had like developed a system there where every day, you know, I worked at the fire department full time, and then on my off days, like I never got out of shape. I went to the gym every day. I wasn't going to miss the gym. I had to go. That was my job. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm the only person we have. You know, I had a wife and 4 kids. I'm the only one bringing in money. You know, that was my responsibility to bring in money. There's no way I'm going to go out there and not perform the way I want to because I was at my son's, you know, missing practice to go to his basketball game, whatever. So no matter what, like if I could make it, I'd love to. But if it wasn't on Saturday at a certain time, I couldn't make a lot of games. Or maybe if it was late, I could make it. But I missed a lot of stuff. And then, but you know, one thing I am is dedicated. I'm going to be dedicated to every day being at the gym, no matter what. So, you know, 5 o'clock, I'm at the gym, no matter what. So I'm doing my thing all day training, you know, if I have to. Kids get home about 4 or something. I'm there for a few minutes and I go to the gym 4:30. So now, right before that, I had a fight. You know, I hurt my knee and didn't really take care of it. You know, had surgery and everything. And then, so right after the fight, I was like, okay, I gotta rehab my knee a little bit to get it better.
Yeah.
And then for that little time, like for a couple of weeks, I went to gymnastics meets and basketball games and everything. And then you know, right after that, they called me and say, hey, we want you to be main event versus Dan Hardy. It's like, all right. So I remember I going to the gym that day. It was like the first time ever when I felt I felt guilty. You know, I just felt like, man, you know, I shouldn't be, you know, and I've never had that feeling. I never felt like I shouldn't be at the gym. That was where I should have been. That's where I should have been doing. And so for the first time ever, I didn't feel good about being at the gym. And I was like, man, what am I going to do about this? I went home and I started talking to the wife and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then we ended up coming up with like, man, it's got to be my last fight. But then that gave me the freedom. Like, I'm not going to lose my last fight. It's never an option. So I was going to go in and do everything I could to win that. That gave me the freedom to say, okay, you can go to the gym every day just for this last time. And so I remember the day before the fight, I wrote, you know, I didn't tell anybody, you know, my coaches, everything knew, but I wrote like a letter to like Joe Silva and Dana White, like telling those guys, you know, thanking them for the opportunity and for helping change my family's life and all that, and gave it to him at the weigh-ins. And that was a tough part though. It's like, you want to win your last fight. I mean, it's a little tougher to do it before the fight than after, you know what I mean? Because win, lose, or draw, that was it, you know what I mean? And you want to go out on top, but you just don't know how it's going to happen. Especially, you know, Dan Hardy was a tough guy. He lost a couple in a row before that. He cracked me good a couple of times, you know. Just to get it. But just being able to go out there and, you know, I felt like just do exactly what I wanted. He shot him at the end. I got the fight of the night and the sub of the night and got the victory. As a pretty meaningful win for me, man. Just going out like I said, there's that pressure when you want to win your last fight and you never know how it's going to end. But then when it all worked out the way I wanted to, I was like, I know I'm going to have positive memories of fighting now, because I don't know how many fighters do. I know a lot of fighters who seem like they always have a bitter taste in their mouth how their fight career ended. Yeah,
but you, like I said, that is the ultimate going out on top, man. To get fight of the night, awesome. To get sub of the night, so you get the big bonuses. I mean, were they ever hitting you back up? Were they ever like hitting you up and were like, hey, we want to bring you back? I know they did. They had to.
You know, they did not. And I almost wonder.
That's surprising.
I know. I almost wonder if it wasn't because, in my opinion, I was wondering if they didn't think. I almost think they wanted this, like an example for other fighters. Like, hey, man, we don't. I know Dan doesn't like it when he has to tell a guy who's one of his favorite people who's been knocked out 4 out of his last 5 fights. I don't think he likes that. I don't think he likes telling people you need to quit. I think he wants people to. I think he wants to have an example of like, man, just go out with a good win, man. Go out on your terms when you're still at your peak, man. Don't tarnish your reputation by getting knocked out for the last 5 fights. That's my theory. I don't never thought they never came back to me. But I don't know. And I'm sure it was too late by this time. They never would have anymore. But I mean, I wonder if it didn't. I'm sure they probably didn't like it. Then I started doing some bare knuckle stuff afterwards.
Did you ever did you vibe well with Dana? Because I know a lot of fighters they say, yeah, he's cool, but like they don't vibe with him very much. Was it just a passing by thing? Like, hey, what's up, Dana? Hey, what's up, Chris? Or is it better than that?
I'm not. I was never like really good friends with him, and I like Dana, and we got along well. It was Dana. People don't get it. It's like he's a fighter. A fighter's guy, like if you go there and you fight, he tells you what he expects. This is what I want when you come out here and do this, and fight. Just fight with the heart. If you do that and you act, he's going to treat you well. And if you go out there and fight your ass off, but if you go out there and you start, I want this, I want that, I'm bigger than you think you're better than the organization, everything else, he's probably going to treat you bad. I mean, people don't really understand. In my opinion, in a way, he's your boss. You have to, understand what's expected of you and fight. Just fight, go out there and fight. It can't be about all the other stuff. And when it is, it's the problem. Look at the guys who go out there and just take care of business. You don't see them complaining about their contract. It's the guys who go out there and put on terrible fights or boring. I deserve this, I deserve that. Well, you deserve what people are willing to pay to watch you fight. And if UFC is not if they're not going to pay you more, there's probably a reason for it. If you can make them money, they're going to love you. And if you can't, they're not. So
yeah,
it's just it's simple economics. I've tried to explain that to some of our fighters at Bare Knuckle. It's like, man, we're not in the position to pay you that right now. If you don't understand that, then go fight for somebody else. I don't care, but I mean, we're not going to go into business because you want more money. This is not the situation.
Of course, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. What's the difference between and they might be very similar. What's the difference between Dana White and David Feldman?
Well, it's kind of tough to say because they're in such different positions in their career. You know what I mean? I mean, Dana was much different early in his career than he is now. You know what I mean? So,
sure. Yeah.
I mean, I see a lot of similarities in them, though. Like they're very driven as far as they have a vision for what they want. Nothing's really going to stop that from happening. I think Dana is in a position now he can kind of say more exactly what he wants because he doesn't care. It's like
he got paid. I mean, yeah, the buyout and everything. He's playing with house money almost, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. But I mean, not just the pay, but just the clout he has. Like he can kind of do whatever. He's still going to be recognized as what he is. So that's already there. That's set in stone no matter what happens. Dave is not quite there in that aspect. I mean, I think still people are still looking at us like, are they going to be around in 2 years? So there's still that question mark. But as far as, the building their brand and what they've been able to do, both very similar. One thing I remember I really did like about what Dave Feldman, somebody, came up and, talking about some of that sponsorship and they do that, different thing. Like, I don't like this sponsor thing. I don't like this and that. And this isn't for you. Got to do something about it, Dave. And Dave's like, all right, well, if you don't want to wear that stuff, then all right, well, thanks for coming out. We'll all right, we'll see you next time. And the guy's like, oh, what? I still want to fight. Okay, well then what's the problem? It was at match point. It was something to do with match point. The guy we don't make people take sponsors. It wasn't like that, but they had some problem with match point. So Dave was like, all right, well, these are my guys. And if you don't like it, then don't fight for us. And the guy was like, all right, so he fought for us, but it's just like, I like that idea. We're not going to bow down. We're not going to cater. We're not going to change things because you're special. I don't like it when people do that, even though I feel like the UFC obviously does that sometimes. Like when somebody fails a steroid test, John Jones, and all of a sudden you move a fight from Vegas to California, that's messed up to me. I mean, okay, I get that. But then all the other fighters who said they had family who was flying to Las Vegas, all of a sudden, like they got family in Vegas and like, well, flying out to LA, that's not on us. I mean, yeah, that kind of is on you. You move the fights when they already bought tickets. That ain't cool. You know what I mean? So that's messed up to do for one person. And I understand it is all about if that guy's selling that kind of tickets and making that money. I do get that, the business aspect, but I don't know, man. I mean, luckily we don't have anybody like that right now. They don't have to bow down and cater to anybody. So it's like, if you don't like it, this is what we're doing and we're not changing. I love that aspect. That's how we do things.
Yeah, I do too. I think seriously on the rise, a lot of fun stuff coming up, going overseas to London. And there's nobody more excited about what's happening with Bare Knuckle than David Feldman. You can see it all over his face, man. He just lights up, every time we do the interview backstage. he just loves breaking news, man. He loves all the news stuff. He loves building it. He loves getting these deals done. And I know it gives his son headaches because he's dropping dates and news before he's supposed to. But that's what makes it fun about, having David in charge, because he's fun, man. He's a wild card. You never know what. And he's always like closing deals. Super fun. I'm excited to see, where this thing grows to. It's an awesome team to be a part of. Let's do some name association, and then we'll get you out of here. So I'm going to give you a name. Just give me what you think. Former opponent, Nick Diaz.
Ooh. What do you want?
Diaz.
Just one word, or what do you want?
No, it doesn't have to be one word. You just give me, when I say Nick Diaz, what do you think?
Man, I just think of like a true hardcore fighter. That's all that dude does is fight. I mean, that's nothing about him is fake. That's about as authentic of a guy as you're gonna get, man. I mean, like him or don't like him, he does not care, and he hates fakeness. He hates fake people. That dude is just a hardcore, true. That's all he lives, breathes, fighting, man. He's just a true fighter.
Good relationship with him, like post fight and all that stuff.
Yeah, man. Oh no, we've always been cool. Dude, we were in the era before you had to have a lot of manufactured beef. So I was like, hey man, this dude's he can understand. I think we kind of, when I say he's a true fighter, I think he feels the same about me. Like I would act like that or fight whatever if there's 1,000 people watching, 1 million or 0 people watching. That's how Nick is. So I think he sees that in me too. So we respect each other. Like, this dude's a real fighter.
All right, I got another guy that is a fight of the night machine, Joe Lozon.
Oh, yeah, Joe Lozon, man, that dude's I'd say very underrated, man. I mean,
I think so too.
He's sneaky good at submissions, good on his feet. Always there, like I don't think he ever really got the respect or credit he deserved. But man, he's always going to be there in every fight. He can beat you in many different ways, but he's just deceivingly good in many ways. I think that people don't give him enough respect for.
All right, and another guy you tangled with, Matt Brown.
Oh, dude, that's another guy who Matt's hilarious. I mean, I remember when the first time I fought him twice. The first time I was getting ready to fight him, they brought him in as because he was just going to be an opponent for me. I'm fighting in Indianapolis. I think his record was like 11-6 or something. Like, hey, who's this guy? I'm going to kill him. And then he gave me all I could handle. I was like, this dude is a problem. And then he got on the Ultimate Fighter, and that dude is another true fighter, I would say. Like at the end, a few years ago, people say, who do you like to watch fight? And I was like, I like watching, Matt Brown. I like Donald Cerrone. I like Robbie Lawler. Those are like my 3 favorite guys, because they're going to break it every time. Like win, lose, or draw. They're not going to win them all, but they're going to put on highly entertaining fights, and they're going to not bow down to anybody. They're going to bring their style, and they're just going to try and take your head off. They're as true of fighters as you get. There's fighters who are flashy. There's fighters who are really athletic. These guys are just hardcore guys, and that's Matt Brown at the team. And that guy goes as hard as anybody. I went and sparred with him before. I walked out there with 2 black guys. He had a black guy. We just beat the crap. I mean, this dude is just a tough as nails, hardcore guy all the time.
What about Rich Franklin?
No, Rich is a really good guy, man. He was always, it was weird. Like I had to fight he cornered against me several times for some reason. But we were always Midwest, just in that Midwest indie grind, just super talented individual. I think another guy who really probably, even though he was a champ, I don't think he really got the respect he deserved, probably because he got beat by Anderson Silva twice. But then that guy was just all around good, and that was just due to hard work. I mean, just a grinder, man. Just really enjoy it. But was a teacher for a while. Like I said, he was those guys early. He was just a very smart, very intelligent guy who just worked his ass off.
Yeah, he's definitely an icon from that era, without a doubt. One of those guys you always think of. Last one, my friend and yours. We gave him a lot of love. What people don't know is we tried to record this yesterday. And you're driving down the road with your family coming from Maine. The service went out, but we actually got some good stuff in there. But But let's talk about our guy Sean Wheelock. You know, I consider Sean to be one of the best play-by-play guys out there, period. Obviously, Bare Knuckle with Triller. He'll do any show that comes through Kansas. I mean, like, he's such a big part of that, part of the commission. He does so many things behind the scenes. But I think as far as a play-by-play guy, there's nobody in the world that does more prep work than Sean Wheelock.
Man, and that's one thing, you know, I realized, you know, early. I remember when I had my first bare knuckle fight, you know, BKFC 2, he did the interview with me, and I was like, okay, the commentator sitting there interviewing me. He's like, well, I'm sure you do this all the time with the UFC. I'm like, no, never once did I do this. He's like, you didn't? No. So now that I'm, you know, partners with him, you know, every fight you show up a couple days early, you sit down with every fighter, you ask them all about the fight, and just a lot of different questions. You know, and I'll show up there, have all the fighters' names written down, the records, and a couple of things here. And Sean always has more information. He's like, well, I saw on BoxRec, you beat this guy and he beat this guy. I'm like, geez, man, I mean, you overdid me. You're always trying to one up, man. I don't know if I like it, but he does that. He's meticulous. He goes far into depth. And then after that, like, I'm like, okay, I did all my interviews today. I'm gonna go get something to eat. When he goes like, no, I gotta do some write-ups. I gotta write this, and this.
A spotting board, bro.
I was like, oh my God. I mean, you're not even done yet, you know? And then the day of the fight, I'm like doing something. He's like, I just got done with myself. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, he's been prepping for, you know, 48 hours straight. I'm like, Jesus, this guy's a machine, you know, as far as that, you know? And then I realized how much easier my job is than his, you know.
Yeah.
He has to do all these different reads and pull different papers out. And I'm just waiting for him to, you know, here's what happened. Sean dribbles around, he bounces between his leg, and he throws an alley-oop, and I dunk. You know, he just does all these easy setups for me, and I just say what I think, you know. It was very easy for me when I was going in. He told me, you know, I've done commentary before, but he broke it down exactly what I'm supposed to do. He's like, you're supposed to do the how and the why. And what you do is you pretend you're the corner man, and instead of waiting for in between rounds, you just say it all at once, you know, good and bad. And for both guys, it's like, that's a pretty easy way of putting it. And so
it is.
Ever since he's done that, man, I'm like, I listen to him, I listen to other people. I'm like, man, he is good. He's very, very good. Like I said, I don't know anybody who's better than him, especially just, I mean, he's just he could be a one-man show. I'm glad it's not. Actually, he couldn't be a one-man. They definitely need.
He could.
So I'm not going to talk myself out of a job here. They need
it. And then with BKFC, he does so much prep work. And then, you know, those fights go fast, because I know I'll be getting ready for an interview and I'll be like, oh, I can go to the bathroom. I can go do this. And then before you know it, like 2-3 fights have gone by because they go that quick. And he did all that prep work, and I don't even know how he got any of it fit into the broadcast. It's crazy.
Well, luckily you got the walkout. We can do a little bit, but I mean, sometimes there's a lot of stuff you write down that you don't say a word of because you didn't have time to. If the fight's 22 seconds, promise you're not getting any of that stuff you wrote down there. But I mean, that's all right. You know, if they fight for us again, you'll have that information. I mean, it's Sean's amazing too. We'll be talking like we talked before, like a couple of weeks before every fight. We'll go be talking to the producer and everything. And you're like, when did this guy fight? He'd be like, October of 2019, I believe. I'm like, dude, how do you know that? You know what I mean? Like, how is that just ingrained in your head? I'm like, I don't know. When did he? I've heard of him, but he's got it memorized. I'm like, oh man, this guy's on a different level with that. Maybe there's something to be said about not getting hit a lot in your head, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. He's never been hit enough. I don't know. I have.
Yeah, he's a special dude, man, and all outs to Sean, man. A big part of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, kind of getting to where it's been, man. I know he's been fighting a lot backstage to get different states and to do everything that he does, man. It's tireless. But we obviously have a lot of stuff coming up with BKFC. You have your own podcast as well, because you needed more stuff to do. Tell me about it.
Man, I do something called Lights Out Podcast, and it's a little different, man. It's just what we like to do is talk to a lot of the old school fighters, some new ones, but I just love hearing all the old school stories about.
Yeah, me too.
You know, people who, when they were fighting in the 90s, and, you know, some people weren't getting paid. I remember one we called the Cold House Fights. Like, what? And they're like, well, it was supposed to happen up in, you know, Wisconsin, and somehow the commission, or like, but they wouldn't legally allow it to happen. And so we just found some old abandoned house, and got in and had fights right in the house. I was like, those are on their
Bro.
record. It was unbelievable.
Cold house fights.
The cold house fight. And like, so they put a mat down, like people were standing by the radiator so that people didn't get, like, are you kidding me, man? But that's on their record. I'm like, so those are real fights, like people breaking into a house and fighting there because I trained for a fight on fight, you know what I mean? But those kind of stories like that are going to be gone if we don't, record them down. So we get on there, we try and get a lot of old school, fighters, and even some of the newer guys, like who have a hint of that, like some crazy stuff in the background, how they got there. It's a lot of fun just trying to preserve some of our historic stories and where the sport came from to see where it is now. It's pretty amazing.
No doubt. Well, Chris, thank you so much for giving me the time, man. This was a lot of fun. I'll obviously be seeing you soon. We're going back to the Hard Rock. So we're excited about that. That's going to be a lot of fun, but man, be safe. Say hi to the family, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good, brother. See you soon.
There it is. Chris Lytle right here on In This Corner. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. A pleasure to have Chris here on the podcast. And we got plenty more coming this season. Cyrus Fees. We'll see you next time right here on In This Corner.